We're going to talk about data-driven implementation of precision ag in sow farms. To share their information with us is Dr. Tammy Brown Brandel. Dr. Brandel is a professor, and Dr. William E. and Eleanor L. Splinter Chair at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Her education, she received her BS in Biological Systems Engineering at UNL, has a dual MS degree in Animal Science and Biological Systems in Engineering from UNL, and then a PhD in Ag Engineering from University of Kentucky. Her research has been focused on engineering approaches to improve animal well-being and production efficiency. Currently, what she's working on is precision animal management, where technology is applied directly to the animal environment to aid in animal management, guide engineering decisions, and develop novel phenotypes. Welcome, Dr. Tammy Brandel Brown.
Thank you. So, is the mic working? Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to wander around just a little bit, probably stay pretty close up here. So when we look at today's animal production, we're faced with many, many challenges. And the one that isn't up here is foreign animal disease. But we've been working on thermal environment, trying to ensure the animals are in the correct thermal environment from birth through farrowing, right? I don't know if you go farrowing to gestation or how you start. Waste management and odor will be continually a problem, right? We have to make sure that we deal with the odors and also make sure that we capture the waste and do add it to the soil and take care of it in a good way. Animal well-being is becoming a bigger issue as people are cannot relate to animal production today. They're really struggling with how we care for animals, so we really need to work on that a little bit. They have more and more questions about how we do things. Antibiotic use, we need to be targeted on our antibiotics and not just do mass antibiotic use. Sustainability in all three topics, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. And our next generation of producers or animal caretakers, where are those coming from? How are we going to maintain that labor source? So in sustainability, I call sustainability a three-legged stool. Obviously, we have to have environmental sustainability. If our producers aren't making money, our producers will not be in business. So we have to have economic sustainability. And the last one that gets left out sometimes is social sustainability. If we don't have consumers that want to buy our product, we are also not in business. So we have to maintain all three levels of sustainability. So what will our swine facilities look like in 10 years, 20 years, and in 50 years? I think we need to make that decision, and we need to be on the forefront of those decisions instead of being reactionary. Should we employ technology in those facilities? Why should we employ technology? What is the benefit? What technology should we be using? And what are the implications of that technology use? I'll go through some different uses of technology, and we're always looking for better ways to do things and trying different sensors in that realm. I work in an area called precision animal management or precision livestock farming. And what that is really we are developing tools to utilize real-time data on individual animals to aid in management decisions. Keywords there, real-time data, so we don't want to take data, analyze it, and give a producer the information next week. We really want to have models to take that real-time data and feed information back to the producer. We are aiming for individual animals, so we aren't looking at a pen level. Although some of our stuff does look at pen level, we really want to aim towards individual animals, not pen or herd. And then the last key word up there is aid. aid management decisions. We do not want to remove the animal caretaker from the environment. We really want to provide information to help them be more efficient. So when we look at our animal systems and decide if we want to put technology in there, every animal species and every stage of production really requires some unique solutions. So we need to focus in, and every different situation requires different solutions. So today we're going to focus on the sow and different things that we're working on in the sow. So when we start looking at going from stalls to group gestation, I'm going to tell you that in stall gestation, we were doing a lot of precision animal management, right? We knew that sow, we knew when she was bred. We knew if she ate or not because we could see the feed in front of her. We knew if she was gaining or losing condition because she was always in the same spot. We could walk by and look at her. When we start going to group gestation, we lose a lot of those precision animal management techniques. So that's where we need to start applying technology to give that information that they were doing manually back to the producers so we can manage those animals better. So we've heard about body condition score, and I'm sure that you guys can tell me a lot more about body condition. We're looking for a way to do that with vision. So body condition score, this is Jeff Knauer's calipers, and that works out really well, and a lot of producers rely on that. Although when we are in crates, it's easy to get a body condition score using a caliper. When you are in pen gestation, that becomes difficult. We have done it, it's not fun. So we have done it using digital images and measuring different widths and lengths. And when we're suggesting that maybe we could use something called a depth camera. And a depth camera, if you remember, this was a very fleeting technology in the gaming world. Kinect for Xbox was designed to get kids off the couch and move in front of the camera to play games. I don't know, does anybody remember those cameras? Oh good, there's a few. I can't talk to college kids about Kinect for Xbox because it was so fleeting they don't remember. So this was the first Kinect for Xbox camera. That really changed a lot of PLF work. When that camera came out, you can look and see the date that it came out, and we have an exponential increase in the number of publications using depth cameras. Those cameras were about $200 or so. So really we could do a lot of nice stuff with that. So what is a depth image and how is it different than a digital image? So if you take a digital image with your phone or with a camera, what it is it is an array or a group of numbers 3 layers deep. So you get an intensity of blue, an intensity of green, an intensity of red. So a depth image is also a group of numbers. It's an array of numbers. This is a fake array of numbers that represents the distance from the camera to every pixel in the image. So this would be in centimeters. And I plotted this out, and you can see the floor, of course, would be farthest away, so it'd be highest on the graph. So we invert that, and so we can see the animal standing there. We use this for a lot of different things in our research. So here is a Kinect version 2 for Xbox. And you can see that sow. Oops, sorry. Oops, there we go. Is it gonna play again? Sorry. You can see the sow standing there, and she is walking through a corridor in a NEDAP ESF system. So you can see the corridor. You can see 2 sows laying on the outside. What I find amazing about this is how smooth of image that is and how crisp of image that is. So what we did is we took these images, we selected the sow out of there, we got rid of the others that weren't of interest, we got rid of the sidewalls, and then we can measure not just the width of a sow, not just the length of the sow, but we can actually measure the curvature across the center of the sow. And we can do that not at the last rib, but we can do that at every single pixel throughout the entire length of the sow. So we were pretty excited about that. And we took some different measurements, and we looked at a condition score measured by Jeff Knauer's calipers, and we predicted that based on some curvature measures we could take. Now, ideally, we would have a 1-to-1 ratio, so our slope would be 1. Here's our slope. And our intercept, or where it crosses this line here, would be 0. And our R squared, or the goodness of fit, would be 1 as well. You can see we are not perfect. We have some more work to do, right? Our R squared is 0.77, not too bad, but our slope is 0.6, so we really need to do some more work on that. And we're working on that. We haven't completed that work yet. So also, one of the things that we lose when we go from gestation stalls to pen gestation, or one thing that we create, is more opportunities for injuries and lameness, and also more difficulties determining which animals are lame. If you're talking 250 animals in a pen, it's very difficult to view all of those animals at the same time. So can we come up with a method to determine which animals are becoming lame, which animals have a sudden lameness that show up, and be able to point producers to that? So we bought this is how veterinarians would monitor lameness. This is a pressure mat, and we watched the pig walk through there. When we bought the pressure mat, they asked me if the sows were potty trained, and I laughed at them, right? So this isn't a way that we can monitor lameness in our ESF systems, but it does provide some good, we call it ground truth data, that we can build models around. So what does the pressure mat tell us in a normal sow? And in that, this is our normal sow. You can see every footfall here. We can measure the distance between the footfalls. We can measure how many footfalls in a certain length of time. When she starts to get lame, she takes some shorter steps. So we can see that in the pressure mat. And then when she becomes more severely lamed, you can see how the footfalls really change in that pressure mat here. However, we cannot do that in an ESF system. So how can we actually monitor our lameness in our sows? And I'm going to suggest that we could maybe use our depth cameras to do that. So this is our first study that we did, and let me see. Yeah, this is a normal sow, and it's a black and white depth image. The black is further away. And you can see how that sow is walking. What we did was we found the shoulders of the sow, and we found the hips of the sow. And we created a circle over each of those, divided the circle in half, and we look at the height of each half of that circle, so we can see her shoulders move and we can see her hips move. So this is a normal sow, and that's how her hips, or how her shoulders move as she's walking under that depth camera, right? I don't know why this one doesn't animate, but this is her hips. And so if you look at that, you can see over that distance, and it's always the same distance in the camera because the camera is stationary, mounted to the ceiling. We have about 2.5 steps through that distance. So now we're going to look at a severely lame animal. And she gets started and she stops, right? She smells the ground because That's normal for a lame sow. We do the same thing, and we look at the shoulders. We take that shoulder circle, divide it in half, and look at the height difference as that sow is moving, and this is what it looks like. Would you have guessed that it was a shoulder injury watching her move? Looking at the data, those are the shoulders, here are the hips. She's taken about 9 steps in the same amount of space that normal sow took 2.5 steps in, right? And looking at the data, I would suggest that it is a shoulder injury, or a front foot injury, not a back foot injury. Well, this is really interesting. If you've ever watched sows move through an ESF system, how many times can you ensure that the sow is going to move this 6 foot in a regular pace? Like, it's never going to happen, right? So while this is really great, and it would be useful if you were moving a sow from breeding to group gestation, or from group gestation over to farrowing, it's not going to give us that daily data that we need to help producers. So here's an ESF system. First of all, we probably don't have 6 foot to put our camera above. And second of all, we can't guarantee that the sow is actually going to walk at a regular pace through that opening, right? So this is some of my postdoc's work, so I'm going to try to explain it. But basically what he said was, can we look at it either a single image or a series of images in a very short period of time and predict whether that animal is lame or not? So he is using some machine learning or artificial intelligence ways to do it. So I will try to explain it. So basically, he trains the model, and then he uses either one lame and one non-lame sow, and he is looking at either one image up to 2 seconds of images. That 60 is 2 seconds of continuous data. So if he uses just one lame and one non-lame sow in his model, we don't get a very good result, right? But if we are using 10 sows, 10 lame, 10 non-lame sows, to predict whether each individual sow is lame or not lame, and we use a 2-second window, which is actually reasonable, we're getting up to about 93%. So we aren't doing too bad. We have a lot more work to do. The next question I have is, so what happens if we don't have 2 seconds of continuous walking, but we have just different images of that animal? And that is what this is. It's non-consecutive, and he's using 30 to 60 images, and we are only at 66 or 70% accuracy. So we still have some more work to do, although I'm telling you, I think we have promise there that we might be able to develop something using depth cameras to predict lameness. So the farrowing environment. So the other thing we're working on gestation. We're also working in some farrowing stuff. And I would like to tell you about several different projects we're doing. We looked at different farrowing crates and tried to evaluate different farrowing crates. We also looked at heat sources. And this was an undergraduate project that I gave, and these are thermal images that we took in a 5x7 crate, just so you have a picture of kind of what the crate would look like and the heat source there. So this is a 5x7 crate, and we have about an 80-degree temperature for that sow, so a little bit warm. When we put 2 heat lamps on either side, we are probably above 80, probably closer to 82. And so she doesn't have a lot of room to get away from that temperature. We go to a 6x8 crate, and this is a 22-inch wide crate, and this is a 24-inch wide crate. you can see we're getting closer to that 75-degree temperature for those sows, so a little bit better. When we put 2 heat lamps in there, you can see that we have a lot more warm space, and so it's harder for her to get away from that. So how much space is really required for sows? So this is some work that I did with Hongwei Shin when he was at Iowa State, and Suzanne Leonard was a graduate student. So we looked at dynamic space, and dynamic space is how much space does a sow actually need to do like posture changes? Like how much space does she need to stand up or to lay down in the act of standing up, not already just laying down or already standing up. So if we consider that our standard crates allow 13 square foot for an animal, that's her space. And to stand up, she needs about 21 square feet to stand up without anything around her. When she goes from standing to lying, she needs about 16 square foot. And then when she statically stands, like she's just standing up, she needs about 13 and a half, and when she's laying down, she needs about 11 and a half. So keep that in mind because that changes a little bit of how the sow really reacts to the different crate sizes that we showed. So what we did was the first study we did is we looked at crate sizes. If the crate is a 5x7 or a 6x8, if we gave the extra space just to the sow, or if we gave it to the sow and the piglet. So here's our traditional 5x7, expanded 6x8, and then we gave the sow a little bit more room here. So we did production measures and we did behavior measures. When we gave the sow extra space, we had no change in pre-weaning mortality. Nothing changed. If we added 1 or 2 heat lamps, no significant change. So we started looking at the behavior of the animal because if you can only we looked at 1 year of data, about 8 months of data, so probably could have a little bit more. So we took digital in depth. We looked at the amount of time she spent laying, and this is the day from 0 is farrowing. So you can see we get a drastic change. We were expecting that. What was interesting is the sows with 2 heat lamps actually spent more time laying down than the sow with 1 heat lamp. And that was because the sow with 1 heat lamp, in my opinion, could actually get a little bit away from the heat, and so she probably stood up a little bit more to get away from the heat when she needed to. Opposite happens when we go standing. So our 1 heat lamp stood up more, didn't lay down as much. Number of piglets increased the time spent standing, and our parity 3 sows spent more time than our parity 1 sows spent standing. Setting was interesting because in our little bit wider crates, she actually spent less time sitting, and I think that was because it was easier for her to get up and down, and these were 30-inch wide crates, so a little wider than industry standards. So we did get some differences, but not anything drastic that we would recommend, yes, you have to do this or that. So our next study was we really looked at how we arrange the crates. So we used a sow in the center, sow on the side, and a diagonal crate. So when we put the heat lamps there, you can see sow in the center really got more heat than either off to the side or diagonally. And then I put this in here because this is a nice representation. If we increase the height of that heat lamp, move the heat lamp off, you can see what a huge impact it has on our sows. So the whole idea was if we can move that sow in the space and really help the piglets, pull the piglets away, let the piglets actually form a circle, we might be able to decrease pre-weaning mortality. What we ended up doing was numerically we did reduce pre-weaning mortality. We also reduced percent stillborn. When we just looked at high mortality sows or sows that had lost 2 or more piglets, we did putting the crate or the sow in an offset position did decrease our percent overlays. and I will finish up here with saying, as we are applying technology to the animal environment, it is absolutely critical we are prepared to be in the environment that we are in. This is a computer system that we're measuring time at the feeder. So I have instrumentations here, I have a computer here. So yes, innovation is not for the faint of heart. So here's some takeaways. Producers don't have time to sift through the data. We need information. We can't stop just data. We have to model it and give you information. Systems cannot take longer to care for than the animals that they are trying to monitor, right? Maintenance and flaky computer systems take time away from animal care, so we really have to have solid systems before we can put them in barns. We need to focus on solutions for items that make the producer more efficient. We need to involve producers in those conversations. We cannot make assumptions as engineers how to help them. We have to understand the limitations of the data that we are collecting. When we model data, if we don't understand the limitations of the data, we call it garbage in, garbage out. Garbage into the model equals garbage out of the model. And then lastly, be prepared for the environment that you're developing systems for. We cannot compromise biosecurity. It's absolutely critical. And I just have 2 more slides. Precision animal management is a multidisciplinary field. We cannot forget to include producers in the conversation. You are absolutely critical. What insight you can give us helps us develop better systems. Great. So I thought I was going to run out of time, so I cut this part out of my presentation. But actually, oops. Actually, no. Let's see. Okay, so the other thing we're doing is we're going back after we did the behavioral analysis. We went back and we pulled out all the digital images because we were looking at digital in depth, and we started to see if we could look at shoulder lesions and if the crates actually make a difference in our shoulder lesions. So same setup that we did for Suzanne's, and then for the space quality. And so what we did was we built a machine learning model to look at shoulder lesion development during the first 7 days, the second 7 days, all the way up. We had 4 weeks of data from farrowing, actually from the time they came into the farrowing crate until they left. And so we did a transfer learning, or I think YOLO v5 is what we actually settled on. So what we did is we took the original image and then we cropped it just for the top half of the pig. Then what we did was we looked at if the computer could find that lesion, and yes, it could. And then we also looked to see at the size of the lesion. And so we looked at traditional crates, the 5x7, the 6x8, and then if we gave the sow a little bit more room. And we found that 1 heat lamp versus 2 heat lamps really changed our development of our shoulder sores. So in this treatment, when we gave 1 heat lamp, we had a really low prevalence. We had a higher prevalence in the extended sow area when we extended the sow area a little bit. When we provide 2 heat lamps, our prevalence really jumps up in our other 2 crates are with the narrow sow size, and it actually drops with the larger size. I think we need to go back. I'm making him go back and add more sows to this to see. And the other thing that we found in this study is that we think that some of those shoulder lesions are actually due to brand new flooring in there, and they are actually superficial lesions and not the ulcers that occur longer term. So another study that we were going to go back and look at to see if we can add thermal cameras to pick up those ulcer formations earlier than the visual signs. And with that, I thank you for your time and your attention.
Plenty of time for questions before our next speaker, so fire away.
When you guys do the thermal imaging and depth cameras, I'm sure it takes a massive computer to compute all that data. Does technology need to progress a little bit further to do that on a commercial size scale?
So right now to capture images and the question was capturing and processing of images, do we have to have a really big computer to do that? To capture the images, no. We're using a $300 bare bones little computer, right? Just a little one. And then it's all hooked up on a Ethernet system, so it goes and it sets it in a drive. Right now, we are not at the point of processing, but we will be in the point of processing soon. And our hope is that we will process it on a main computer, like at midnight. We'll do all of those data processing. It'd be really nice if we can do it as they happen. We'll have to see the computer power if that can do that or not.
Right, on the lameness, versus the image versus the moving sow, which way do you think has more promise, I guess, in the future?
Well, I think in order for us to put it in an ESF system, I think we will have to go to images, and we have to work on ways to process that and to build those models to be more robust. It is beautiful to watch that sow walk and see her two shoulders and her hips move, right? It's awesome. However, we also walked behind those sows to keep them moving at a regular pace, right? So while it's really nice, it's just not applicable to too many things.
So on your DEF system where you're looking at body condition, did you say you're comparing that and you're trying to get a correlation with the caliper?
Yeah.
Or you're going back to, I guess, what if you're doing that, why wouldn't you go back to like what true back fat is?
Yes, we will go back to true back fat, and we have some of that data, and I think that's where we really need to go. Our first thought was we would try the calipers because that was, we were hoping that would be better than a visual assessment, although I'm not sure that that is true either. So it's a moving target, but yeah, our next study we will be doing back fat, and we're trying to figure out exactly which back fat we want to do in our sows.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.